Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do a little project with you guys, and what I want to do is make some bullet lube and lube up some bullets real fast. So like these guys right here, these are some 45 caliber bullets that are just about ready to go. But I wanted to make a bullet lube up and talk to you guys about that, because there's a lot of stuff on YouTube about bullet lubes, and a lot of it is just plumb wrong, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of video out that's telling people to just go buy the plain wax ring at Home Desperate and use it. I'm going to tell you not to do that. That wax ring that you're buying at the big box store is not beeswax. It's something called slack wax, and it is full of additives and chemicals that make it really great for sealing your toilet, but not really great for use as a bullet lubricant. And furthermore, wax is not the only ingredient anyway. Wax is just the carrier of the lube, and the actual lubricant has to be dissolved into the wax, and then that mixture allowed to solidify on the bullet and then load it into the round, right? So let's check out our recipe real quick here. Okay, basically here's the recipe. It's a formula called Emmert's Improved Lube, and the basic formula is 50% beeswax, 40% Crisco, 5% anhydrous lanolin, and 5% canola oil. Now all these ingredients are really easy to get. And I'll put my sources down in the description. The Crisco you can substitute with high temp coconut oil as well, and I've used that recipe already and it's worked out extremely well, but this time I'm trying the Crisco because I'm looking for more of a high temperature lube. Now this is your mixture, and these numbers are by weight, right? And so to translate that, because I bought a 1 pound package of Crisco today, I need 19.2 ounces, and I rounded up to 20 ounces of beeswax. I need 1.8 ounces of each lanolin and canola oil, and I rounded each of those up to 2. So I'm going to end up with about 40 ounces or so total of bullet lube when I'm done. And just for a little bit of a reference here, the melting point of beeswax is somewhere between 145 and 147 degrees. The melting point of Crisco is 117. The high temp coconut oil melts at 92, and the regular coconut melts at about 74. So these are going to be my two main ingredients, my melting temperature should be somewhere in the mid to high 120 degree range, which should be optimal for what I'm trying to do. And I got this, even though this recipe has been out for a long time. One of the main people promoting it is Glenn Frizel, who wrote this awesome book, From Ingot to Target. This for me is the definitive guide on bullet casting. This is the most information packed single source of casting info you're going to get, and it's free. I will also include a link to it in the description. All you have to do is go online to that address, punch it up, and you can print the thing off the same as I did. I have gone through this book time after time after time. There's always something in here. Oh yeah, here we are talking about the Keith bullet. This is the definitive source. I mean, outside of Elmer's book 6 Guns, this is the definitive source of info on that bullet as well. And so today we're going to lube up some rifle bullets and some pistol bullets. These are 45 cal bullets for my 1911, and I already had some lubed up for my 38 special I've been trying to load for. So let's get cracking and make some lube. Alright, you guys, well, you might wonder what I'm doing. And what I'm doing here is I'm cutting up beeswax. And I'm cutting up beeswax so that I can make some bullet lube. Now this wax I've been heating up in my oven at 100 degrees for a little while now to kind of soften it up, And I found that it helps to use a thin knife like this fillet knife right here to cut it with. But I do not recommend buying block wax. And I'm going to put a link down in the description at the bottom down there that'll show you guys a way better way to get your wax in pellet form, so that you can just measure it and weigh it and then dump it into your double boiler to make your bullet lube. But for right now, because I decided to buy the big ass economy size block, this is how I get to consume it all. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to create or get myself about 20 ounces of wax. And so let's turn our scale on right here. For my lube recipe, I need 20 ounces of beeswax. And I want to tell you something else too. As we talked about before, don't buy the wax from the Home Desperation store. The toilet ring wax. Do not buy that. That's not beeswax. That is a mixture of other kinds of waxes, none of which do really anything for your bullet lube, which is what you need it for. They don't perform near as good, and they're actually just about as expensive as the real deal. So we're up to 7 ounces here, so let's keep on keeping on. Keep cutting. Yeah, well, that's a little, I have to cut that like this. Beeswax is tough to cut. So let's get a sturdier side here to take something off of. And this green glove that I'm wearing on my hand is actually a cut glove from my job site, so that I don't fillet my hand open trying to do this, which could actually be a real risk, since I'm pushing on the really skinny pointy end of the knife most of the time here. So that's 9.4. We're almost halfway there for what we need for our lube. 10.3, looking good. See if we can get a big shaver off of here. I started searching for a lube recipe that would perform well with either black powder or smokeless. Now that I'm starting to shoot quite a lot of black powder. Black powder has very specific needs. The lube has to be good enough to where it prevents leading, but it also has to be good enough to keep the powder fouling and the bore soft. And this is really something that smokeless lube doesn't really have to do much, right? Smokeless lube, if it just gets the bullet out the barrel with a minimal amount of leading, most people are pretty happy with it. But in researching lube, because I wanted to really, I want to do it, you know, give myself the best chance I can get for shooting in gong matches with black powder, I started doing some research on lube, and I ran into quite a few times where people who've also done, you know, kind of the same thing I'm doing now, old timers, people that came before me, have said that they found situations where they noticed that some bullet lubes were more accurate than other bullet lubes, even. Hey, we're at 1.02, so that is 16 ounces. We've got about, what do we say? We've got about 4 ounces to go here. They noticed that some lubes were more accurate than other lubes, even when no leading was present. And that struck me as kind of curious. I wanted to know why. I'm one of these people that always has to know why, and that's been a terrible habit at times throughout my life, having to know why. But on this occasion, it was actually a really good thing, because I discovered a secret about bullet lube, and that is, in a nutshell, some lubes are a whole lot better than others. And there are times when you think your lube is working really good, and in reality, it's not. most people accept the fact that lack of leading means that their lube worked. And what I'm going to postulate now is that the lack of leading is only one factor in determining if a bullet lube is good or not. And I've been working on this lube, this formula called Emmert's Improved. It's a simple formula. It's on the internet. I'm going to provide it for you in the description here. And we'll even show you a picture of my little worksheet. And it's worked very, very well. 1 pound, 4 ounces. This is tough to see. Sorry. Perfect. Done cutting wax. Thank God. Let's get on to the next step. So here's a couple other ingredients. Now in the past I've used coconut oil to make my lube. This is 92 degree. This is the high temp coconut oil stuff. And I'll put a link to this in the description too. It's just white organic coconut oil, and it's worked for me very well. Actually, the lube that I've made with this so far has been outstanding. But I was concerned about the heat in Montana for the Quigley match, and Crisco has a higher melting temperature than coconut oil. So that coconut oil is 92 degree. That's its melting point. Well, Crisco melts at somewhere around 115 degrees. So it's considerably higher, and considering that the air temperature out there can hit 115, I want to try this lube for sure. So this is a 1 pound tub of Crisco. We're going to go ahead and use it along with our beeswax, canola, and lanolin in our double boiler. I'm going to set it up and we'll be right back. Alright everybody, so what I've got here is I have my lanolin, my Crisco, my canola oil, and my beeswax. And what I've got here is 20 ounces of beeswax because that's how much I need for my formula. I've got a double boiler going right here, and it's going to start boiling here any second. You have to use a double boiler if you're going to make anything with beeswax. If you just put a pot on the stove and you heat the beeswax up over direct heat, what'll happen is that as soon as the beeswax goes over about 230 degrees, it'll scorch and it'll ruin the property of the beeswax, which is this is the carrier for our lube ingredients, right? These get dissolved into the beeswax, and this stuff carries it down the barrel of the gun. If you ruin this, you don't get the benefit of any of this. So very, very important. You have to use a double boiler. I know probably nobody can, lots of people won't listen. They'll do it their own way. That's all good. Do whatever you're going to do. The other thing I noticed, it really helps to have the beeswax cut up into a bunch of small chunks rather than trying to melt one large big chunk. And down in the description, I put a link to where I bought my beeswax, and you can just buy it in pellet form, which means you could just measure it out in cups and dump it into your double boiler, and it'll melt way easier than what I'm having to struggle with here. Don't repeat my mistake and buy the big block, in other words. So this thing's starting to heat up, so I'm going to start putting in these clumps of beeswax, and well, they're starting to melt already. So I'm going to put a few in there, and we'll get a base going of some melting wax. And basically we're going to keep on adding it in, and this stuff is going to sit there and it'll melt down. We're going to keep on adding it in until it's all in there and it's all melted. We're not going to add any other ingredients until all of that wax is melted, because the wax has the highest melting temperature. It's the most difficult thing to melt in the whole mix, and if you add other stuff to it, it just takes way longer. So melt your wax first, then add the other stuff. That's the trick here. So we're going to keep on keeping on, and we'll be right back with you, and we'll measure the rest of this stuff and put it in there. Alright folks, so we've got our wax completely melted, and I just screwed up and I didn't have my camera on, but I just added the oil and the lanolin to the mix. And I'm going to scrape this off and make sure all these goodies get in there so they can all do their part to help us send some rounds downrange. Put that to the side. And now we're going to crack this can of Crisco here. And the way we did our math, the entire pound of Crisco goes in there. So, let's get the spatula in here and get her done. And you kind of, with the way this thing kind of flops around a little, you got to be careful that you don't spill and make a mess. I've done that twice now. I discovered that this bullet lube is actually an excellent treatment for butcher block countertops. Beautiful, beautiful job it does on your wood cutting boards too, which means I will no longer be buying that super expensive wood treatment that you get at the fancy kitchen shop, because now I know how to make it on my own for way, way less money. Clean all them leavings out of there, get them in the pot, and we are dang near done, guys. When this stuff is completely melted, it should be clear. It should be a clear golden brown color. Alright, let's let it warm up just a little more. And then we're going to turn it off and pour it into our little mold tubs we have. All right, we can turn this off now. We are about ready to pour lube. Now, if you can see in there, it's pretty clear. I mean, I can see the bottom of the tin. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera or not. But this lube is ready to pour. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scoot this back. I'm going to put this trivet out. I'm going to let this cool down for just a few minutes before I dump it into my two plastic Tupperware, disposable Tupperwares I've got, because it's still a couple hundred degrees, and we never know if this plastic came from China or something. It might not like the heat much, but we'll let her cool down for just a couple minutes, and then we're going to dump it. Alright, you guys, so I've got about, in my can here, I've got about 40 ounces of lube, and I'm just going to try and pour it into these two containers pretty equally. You can see it's coming out a really nice gold color. And I'm just going to try and make a couple of equal blocks of lube. And the reason I'm kind of doing this is because when I go to pan lube bullets, which is what I'm basically doing right now a lot of, I don't want to use my entire batch of lube. I just want to take one block, put it in there, melt it down, and go. Because to lube 100 bullets is only going to take this much out of one of these blocks of lube. Each one of these, I mean, I might have 1,000 bullets worth of lube here. So having it in a little bit smaller batches, I think, is the way to go. So we're just going to let it cool down, and when it's done, it will be a color kind of similar to that, really. Kind of a tan color. So we'll just let her go. Alright, everybody, it's been about 30 minutes or so, 35 minutes, and the lube is still a little soft. It's not solid all the way through, but you can see what it looks like when it's done. It just looks like tan colored wax, basically. So we're going to cap it up, and I'll just put it in my fridge downstairs. That's where I keep it till I'm ready to go. I just put a block in there, melt it up, and then we pan lube. Look for a video on that coming out real soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Recoil Therapy.